Episode 4, Oeuf, written by Jennifer Shaw, directed by Peter Medak. Will Graham admits to Dr. Lecter that he still feels guilt over Garrett Jacob Hobbs' victims, and that he imagines doing the same things as Hobbs at the same time, even in death. Jack, Will, and the FBI team investigate the mysterious murder of an entire family. Meanwhile, Hannibal feeds Will's dogs, but not before doing a little snooping around his house. Alana visits Abigail at the institute she's staying in, where she feels isolated. Alana then visits Hannibal, where they discuss Abigail and his feelings of paternal obligation. Will determines that the family murder has to do with family itself, with a mother figure being involved. He discusses his own family with Hannibal. We learn that he didn't know his own mother and moved around a lot, and Hannibal lost his parents at an early age until he was adopted by his uncle at 16. The FBI science squad begin to determine that missing children are involved in the family murders, as each one involves a child who went missing months prior. With two families murdered, we meet the culprits, Ava and her band of lost boys, a woman making herself a mother figure with missing children going back to kill their families. Hannibal takes Abigail to his home to make her breakfast for dinner, but also gives her psilocybin hallucinatory tea to help with her trauma. Will, Bev, and Alana determine that the missing boys are following a mother figure, and they determine and prevent the next target. Ava gets shot, and one missing boy is saved, showing remorse. Alana discovers Hannibal and Abigail, much to her anger. We end with a glimpse into the married lives of Jack and Bella Crawford, where things seem tense and aloof. Welcome to Fate and Circumstance, the Hannibal fan podcast where I, a neurodivergent autistic twat who loves the show Hannibal, talks to my two friends who have never seen it before, although they have now. My name is Felix Fanfaron Fern, and these are my co-hosts.
Hi, I'm Melisa Suzan.
Hi, I'm Shaira Bambi.
Why wasn't this musical?
It's fine. Switching it up. It's okay.
Yeah,
I feel like I've missed out now. Cool, so we are going to be talking about episode 4, Oeuf, which for some unknown reason is spelt with a C in the script, making it Oeuf. That's not a word, it's Oeuf, which is egg. This is the egg episode. Well, first things first, how did you feel about the episode?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of the parts with the main characters kind of talking. I felt the procedural was a bit more dull than I liked it. I liked the previous ones, but otherwise, yeah.
I completely agree. I think there was so much given in the first two episodes. So this one, although still obviously very enjoyable, it seemed a little slower in pace, which is fine because I guess a lot of the previous episodes there was so much happening and so much information. It somehow felt longer. It felt like a much longer episode for some reason. Maybe because it was a bit slower and, like, in my brain, not as much happened as what we've seen already. I felt like it was going on for ages.
I think one of the reasons why it might feel a bit longer is because we've got two quite long concurrent plots, because we've got the procedural with the family plot and also what's happening with Abigail Hobbs. So I think it makes it feel a bit longer because quite a lot's happening.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about this a lot later. I think it is generally the way the procedural was so less enjoyable is because it was less a standalone procedural, and it was more to juxtaposition with the family elements of the main characters. So that's why I feel like it wasn't as unique or enjoyable, but it was still very enjoyable.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I agree that the general family plotline of the procedural in this episode carries along very well to push all of the other characters along, which they did nicely with Will separate to the Abigail plotline. So I agree, it feels a little bit more like a tool to push everything else along rather than unlike, say, like the Eldon Stamets amazing mushroom procedural plot.
Yeah, it felt more like a tool than it felt like a plot for its own regard.
Yeah, it's not as sort of mind-blowing. I suppose we don't get any really cool murders in this either. Like, they're fine, but they're not like artsy tableaus or anything, so they're a bit, it's just a bunch of dead families.
And just casually dead families is fine.
Maybe we need the annoying redhead in episodes just to make us go, oh my god.
Maybe that's what it was. You all say you hate her, but maybe the reason you didn't like this episode as much is because there was no Freddie Lounds.
Yeah, maybe.
So you need Freddie to balance everything out. She's the spice of Hannibal.
She's the antagonist.
She is the antagonist, the real antagonist. So my talking points start out terrible because I just listed a bunch of silly things to begin with, which is cannibal jokes are in this episode. Cannibal jokes are back. I noted 2 cannibal jokes. There's the bringing his wife along to dinner with Jack, and then the rabbit that should have run faster.
Yep.
That whole dinner scene is wonderful. So yay, 2 cannibal jokes. Boo, no Will in his boxes.
No Will in his boxes.
We do see his underwear drawer though.
Yeah, we do.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I was honestly like, oh Hannibal, you're going sniffing in, aren't you? Like, you so want to pick it up and sniff those, don't you?
Remember what I told you about him having really strong olfactory senses, so he could smell things really far away. So I reckon that's why he didn't have to go up close to it. You know he could smell it already.
Oh damn! Yeah,
dirty bastard.
No way that he could not smell that drawer.
Oh damn! Yeah, he was having a good little sniff.
The other thing I wrote is just that Will likes boats.
Oh yeah, I wrote that as well. It's like, yeah, more Hanny and Hugh. Hanny and Will.
Hanny and Hugh is so cute though.
Hanny and Hugh, yeah.
Get that on a fucking t-shirt.
It makes me sad because the way it's normally used, but there is a ship name for Mads and Hugh.
Aww.
Which is Madancy. I think it's cute as just a way to refer to them. I don't ship real people. But it is a cute ship name, though.
Yeah, shipping real people.
It's cuter than Hanagram, which I'm fine with, but never really understand why it's Hanagram. Yeah, Hanagram is the Hannibal and Will Graham ship name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's either Murder Husbands or Hanagram.
Murder Husbands.
See, that makes me think of a graph and the look at this graph, like meme. Look at this hanagram. It's another edit I can make with my shitty like Photoshop. Okay, cool.
Right, going into my very serious talking points, of which I've written them to be way too long. Why does Will feel so guilty about Garrett Jacob Hobbs' crimes? Because he has the entire conversation with Hannibal about them. And I was wondering, is it just because of his empathy? And he says specifically that he feels guilty about the death of Melisa Suzan, which is especially weird to me because Hobbs didn't kill Melisa Suzan. Someone else did, the copycat killer, who they've painted to be Nicholas Boyle, and we know isn't Nicholas Boyle. So that's interesting. Any thoughts?
I just wrote, at first I wrote empathy. But then I was like, I think he connects to the killers. Maybe he feels almost like them after his first kill. Almost adjacent to the killers. Both because he's killed before. Obviously in self-defense of people. But also because he puts himself so much in their shoes. It can be empathy, because I find a lot of time I empathize with people, but I don't think I empathize to people where I can put myself into it. And also, he kind of says it in the start that he's not Hobbs.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why he feels like he is a killer. He's responsible for this, which is very, very strange.
I think him saying it out loud was almost him, like, this was in the session with Hannibal, right? Where he's like, at the beginning, where he's like, I'm not Gareth Jacob Hobbs.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, I wonder if that's him trying to literally say it out loud to sort of convince himself, almost. Like, saying it out loud to be like, no, this is what I believe, but he's in denial because he does believe that he has become him. I feel like maybe it's just, I mean, maybe I'm missing a huge point here, and like I'm not looking into it deep enough, but I thought maybe it's literally just the deep trauma getting even deeper of him just, I don't know, the PTSD of just doing that and having all of that whole situation, that whole thing of him being there with him and then shooting him and watching him kill the people like there and then, I don't know, be just so ingrained in his mind, and the way that he puts himself into the killer's position to try and decipher what he believes to have happened. I think that method of doing stuff is just getting so deep into his psyche. He literally is imagining quite literally putting himself into those people's shoes to the point that his brain is just meshing. I think it's just all of that we've spoken about before. It's just getting deeper as time goes on, which a lot of the time with certain traumas, it does get a bit deeper and a bit sort of more severe before you start to recover and get better from it, if that makes any sense.
It does. You mentioned acting before we even started today's podcast. Maybe just how method actors do it. They get so ingrained into their role, and then he played the role of Jacob Hobbs to find Jacob Hobbs, and obviously all of the other killers. So it might be his method acting just kind of making him lose himself, as you were saying.
You mentioned other killers. He puts himself in the shoes of various different killers in order to try and reimagine their crimes. So why specifically Hobbs?
Well, maybe just, I don't know if it's just the first big one that we've seen that started all of this off, or just the fact that there's Abigail right there and then, and he's so into this thing of collecting strays, as everyone loves to mention in the show. And I think he just feels that sense of responsibility.
What's the difference between Hobbs and the other killers in relation to Will?
Hobbs was closer to him almost. The whole C factor as well. Like that, I know there's like an underlying thing of why. I don't understand it, or I don't understand it yet. Maybe I'll understand.
Shall I feed it to you?
Yes, please, because I know it's something, and I'm probably close to the answer. We're all probably, me and Melissa are both probably close to the answer.
You'll both go.
Feed me, Seymour.
He kills him.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fuck's sake.
The others he didn't kill.
You were both on the borders of it with trauma. Hobbs is the only person that he kills, and he says to Hannibal in a previous episode he doesn't consider him his victim; he considers him dead. But I agree with you. I think it's a trauma thing. I think it's also a guilt thing, but I don't think that Will acknowledges that. I think it's a combination of things. He was already in Garrett Jacob Hobbs' mind before he died. The reason he's still revisiting him after he died is because he's the one who killed him.
Yeah. No, that makes. That was so on our tongues.
I feel like, if anything, it's very it's not good that he reacts like this, but it's almost like, I think it would be more concerning if he didn't react in this way to killing someone, because anyone with a sort of non-psychopathic, non-murdering kind of person brain would probably feel like this and respond in this way to murdering someone. So it's kind of good to be like, okay, Will is definitely not, well, at this moment in time, this is what we think. This is what I think. I've got my hands up. That he's not wanting to kill again, and it's not something that he's like, oh yeah, I like this, I want to go and become like a serial killer. Does that make sense? Like, it's kind of like, you'd think that anyone that's a non-serial killer brain or criminal brain would kind of react this way and be a bit fucked up from the situation.
I would say that Will is kind of, in a way, kind of. No, I'm going to agree with you. I think that Will is almost like the opposite of someone with psychopathy, because the idea that someone with psychopathy or some kind of antisocial personality disorder is often the suggestion that they lack empathy or they have a very tight-knit control over their emotions, whereas I think Will is displayed as being the opposite. So I agree with you. I think that he thinks about Hobbs a lot because he can't disconnect that empathy that he started in the first place, so it's still there. So even though he's dead, the shadow of his death is still constantly in his brain. Because trauma, PTSD does that. PTSD takes an event and makes it live on in you. So I think that's essentially what's happening with Will.
For sure.
I agree with you too. It shows that Will is actually, you know what, I'd say that's something that I would look into people. Like, yes, it shouldn't affect you overly, but especially for the FBI, I think showing empathy for those you've killed, even if they're killers or murderers, is something that I would look for if I was in the FBI. And it's weird that the FBI was like, no, he's unstable, because the opposite would be, the person was completely unfazed, which I would be like, that's a red flag.
Yeah. That's why people with psychopathic personality disorders, if you can kind of argue that's a thing, that term is not used anymore, technically, but people with personality disorders like that were considered incredibly successful in roles such as high up in businesses, because they have an innate ability to disconnect themselves from things, which makes them incredibly successful people.
Right.
Will is not that person, which is why he struggles. Unlike someone else we know in the show who is very successful.
Yeah, I'd rather be less successful and more kind and more empathetic.
Yeah.
Same. I do have issues with empathy, and I agree. I'd much rather be a mess and have a lot of empathy.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's the Melisa Suzan thing as well, which you might not have any thoughts on, which is absolutely fine. But I find it very interesting that that's the specific death. Like, Hobbs had, I think, a total of something like 12 victims. That might have included the copycat ones. I can't quite remember. I know it was 8 originally. But Marissa was not killed by Hobbs. So why does he feel guilty about Marissa?
Because he didn't catch the
That's a
copycat.
good question.
That might be it. Shaira, maybe?
Because he didn't catch the copycat, did he? So
Yeah, because he was like,
He might maybe feel guilty of the idea that he triggered it.
yeah.
yeah, that's
And also
true.
the fact that he was like sure with his sort of prediction of like, oh, the copycat killer won't do this again. They, he said like, this is definitely a copycat. It's not the original one. They're not going to do this again, and they did. So maybe the fact that he was convincing people and saying like, hey, I know that this isn't going to happen again, and then it did. He was like, fuck, like you kind of would feel a bit like a sense of responsibility over the fact that you said something wouldn't happen and it did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get that. Well, that is 100% true. Where he was so adamant that it wouldn't happen again, and also maybe because he's also met Marissa quite briefly, did he? And
That's true.
I know quite a lot of people with massive empathy. As soon as they've met someone, at least once, it becomes ingrained to them to be like, this person has more to do with me than a person who I've never met before.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
she's also a similar age to Abigail as well. So there's going to be that, and the paternal feelings and attitude towards Abigail, who probably felt like a bit shitty of the fact that like her kind of friend, like it was a bit iffy, kind of friend was also been murdered in something that he's like so involved in, like this whole thing. And so, yeah, it probably just felt like, she's so young.
Yeah, your daughter's friends do become your surrogate sisters.
Yeah.
Like I feel like my sister's friends are my sister's friends are my sisters as well. So it just feels like that.
I think that makes sense. The next talking point I had was just like many of my talking points, you might not have any thoughts on it. You might have loads. I don't know. I just wanted to talk about Will's house.
We love your talking points. Go for it.
Thank God, because that's what 90% of this podcast is.
I vote a lot about Will's house.
Hell yeah! So he has a boat motor in his living room. He has a piano. He has an old rotary phone. He has his incredibly organized underwear and sock drawer. He has his lure making desk and many, many fishing rods behind it. He also, we don't see it as much, but he has lots of little dog figurines as well littered around. So do you have any thoughts about Will's lovely little house in Wolf Trap, Virginia?
It's so cute. Very homely. Very much like, I feel like a home is a reflection of a person's personality, because it's where you like, it's a way of expressing yourself, isn't it? And it's very erratic, but things that are important to him at the same time, just everywhere. So I feel like that's like very on point.
Yeah. I was like, autistic, innit, bruv? Autistic, bruv, innit?
Oh, his lure, like fly fishing lure desk
Yeah,
his
he's
very
like
big hyperfixation hobby.
hyperfixation. Yeah, he's got all of his like little bits and bobs that he likes. His boat motor, his piano, which I like. I hope he actually plays. Does he play? He plays. Please say he plays.
Oh,
'Cause
I like a man that can play the piano.
why?
Well, I could give a little. There's a very popular headcanon that a lot of people have, which is
Ooh.
the idea that most of the things in Will's house were probably there when he bought it. So, like all
Aw.
the furniture, the piano, the shelves, all the little bit like the rotary phone, there's a lot of old things there. So, a lot of people like the idea that it's so eclectic that he's just bought a house, all the furniture was in it, and then he's filled it with his stuff, which is why
Brilliant,
it's
yeah.
kind of a little older than he is. And I like that idea.
I like that
Yeah.
idea. Okay. It makes me sad that he probably doesn't play it though, but that's fair.
I mean, he might.
He might play it, but
There's plenty more of a musical instrument playing later.
but we did hear
Oh.
Mads play a little bit. Mads Mikkelsen and
Yes.
Hannibal play a little bit, which was like, yes, Daddy.
Hannibal
Was he actually
plays-
there, like, to feed the dogs, or was he like
Yes.
there to snoop around? So he fed the dogs and then snooped around.
Yes.
Oh, and because I sort of got it after he said, "Oh, thanks for feeding the dogs whilst I was away," but then he was like looking around, did something with the fish bait thing, and then pricked his thumb, and I was like, albeit sexy as hell, but man, what are you doing?
It was so sexy as hell.
Yeah, it's very cleverly presented to when you first see the scene, it feels like he's breaking in.
Yeah.
It does feel like he was breaking in. But then that scene where he's sucked his own blood just took over my mind. I was like, sorry, I'm being horny on main.
Oh
Like,
no,
please.
I shared some of this with Shaira beforehand, but one of my favorite script details is I'm going to read the entire thing.
Oh my god, please.
In the script, obviously, it's mostly dialogue and then little bits of direction and little bits of detail about characters, but you don't normally get a whole lot unless it's something they really want to make sure is like driven home in the show. This bit is ridiculously detailed for when he is doing the lore. It says, Hannibal applies himself to tying off an incomplete salmon fly, expertly using the tools of Will's hobby: thread, bobbin, scissors, pliers, his surgeon's precision in play. Having completed his work, Hannibal admires the fly and hook. He presses his thumb gently against a pointed barb and keeps the pressure on until he draws a drop of blood. Without lingering on his act, Hannibal sucks the lone drop from his thumb tip. The sound is not unlike a quick kiss.
Oh.
When that was shared with me earlier, Felix, I was just like, oh my god, why is it so hot? Why is the script so hot?
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, like how descriptive these stage directions are actually.
It proves how important that point is for some reason. There's a little bit of cut detail from this scene as well, which is the idea that Hannibal, with his ridiculous amount of skills, also unceremoniously displayed in a partially disassembled state through Will's glasses. This pisses me off that this is not in it. In the script, Hannibal picks up Will's glasses and puts them on, and then picks up the pieces of the disassembled boat motor and puts them together effortlessly, telling in its own way.
Fucking hilarious.
That's amazing. I want that.
I think it's a bit too over the top, but it would have been so cute.
It would have been so
Yeah.
fucking cute and so gay. We need more games.
I was gonna say I definitely agree, like with what they've cut out. Like you said, it would have been a bit over the top. Like they've definitely been really smart and clever with it. However, that is fucking funny.
Yeah,
It would have been really funny to see.
It drives home the idea that basically Hannibal can do anything.
Hannibal can do anything.
Yeah, something Will is interested in, he can do it. Something someone else is interested in, Hannibal can probably do it. He speaks something like 8 languages.
Damn.
Yeah, I think English is meant to be like his 4th language or something. I think a lot of this is cut out of the show to make Hannibal is already very inhuman as a character.
Yes.
He's so disconnected from what people are. But in the books, he is over the top. He is your overpowered OC, like Do Not Steal.
Yeah.
He can do martial arts. He speaks Japanese. He's traveled all around the world. It's actually ridiculous. He can control his own heartbeat.
I mean, with a brain like that, with those kind of things that you are able to do, I'm not surprised that you have that kind of brain capacity to do all this random shit.
That's
At the same time, I eat people, but I can also speak Japanese and cut you in half like a fucking block of wood.
His signature move is snapping people's necks in like 2 seconds or something.
Whoa! Can being a cannibal make you into a superhero? Well, in this case, a supervillain. But being a cannibal make you into a supervillain? Because I'm just asking for scientific reasons.
Maybe he's absorbing people's powers through their organs.
maybe.
I forgot that I wrote on this talking board as well. Also, Hannibal is a Snoopy Snooper.
That makes me laugh. I did put like another point with his house. One, he talks very fondly with his house. Will talks very fondly about his house at the start. Where sometimes I leave them at night. I leave the lights on in my little house, and he walks out and he sees his house and he like it looks like a boat on the sea, which is like really cute as a way of thinking of a house, and I really love that. And I think also his house is his comfort. Like there's things in it that he's grounded by, like that reminds him of his like his peaceful boating times and fishing, where he absolutely enjoys, which is lovely. And I think that's something that is reflected in his house, where it's something that is part of him, where he bought something, as he said, very old and made it his own.
I completely agree. I think because Will is such a lonely character who is so disconnected from other people, his home is where his pack is, it's where his dogs are. And I agree. I think all of his little eclectic hobbies, his house is his safe space. And I love the first scene of this episode, which in the scripts was meant to be towards the end of the last episode, and then they stuck it at the start of this one. I'm glad they do, because I think it starts it off really nicely before the procedural.
It does. It really does.
And yes, I love the description of his house looking like a boat. Because again, it ties in with everything I kind of mentioned before about Will representing water and having a lot of water-related interests and hobbies.
Yeah.
Everything he sees is somehow related to water. And I think that's kind of like, he is such a panicky, disturbed person, but water is always very calm. I suppose, on the other hand, water could also be extremely not calm.
Yeah, water could be disturbed and panicked.
Yeah, again, Will is water.
Will is water.
that is my theory of the day. Will is water.
Will is water. Oh, I'd like to slap up Will. Sorry. Did I just say that out loud?
So, like, was there any other sort of meaning behind Hannibal snooping around and doing all that shit with the fishing thing? Excuse my ignorance of
lure?
Yeah, so excuse my ignorance of not knowing words.
I only know lures because of this show. I wouldn't know anything about fishing.
Okay.
I know what lures were.
I vaguely knew what they were, but now I really know what they are.
Yeah, now I really know. Yeah, was there any meaning to any of it, or is it just for funsies?
I would say it's open to interpretation. To me, personally, I think it's just another little nudge towards this direction of Hannibal having a fascination with Will. He's been given the opportunity to go to his house, and there's no way he's going to turn down the opportunities to snoop with this person that he is immediately become weirdly fascinated and infatuated with. Yeah, Hannibal has an infatuation.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I wrote infatuation down straight away as soon as I saw that scene.
I think that is the word. Yeah, he's just like, I'm obsessed with this man. I'm going to look at all of his things. So my next point I had was, do you have any thoughts on the growing dynamic between Hannibal and Alana? They're previously mentor and mentee, and Alana has warned both Hannibal and Will of their inclination to become surrogate fathers to Abigail. So yeah, I really like how they talk to each other, especially in this episode. So I wanted to know what you thought.
I like her.
Yeah, I really like Alana. I like Alana. I think is almost everyone's, especially with Hannibal. I wouldn't say with Hannibal especially because it's difficult, but Alana's kind of like the angel on your shoulder, where she's always playing. She's always saying the right thing. She's always doing and giving the right advice. And I think she's very much their conscience. And I just also like the family vibe that they give out, which pun intended for this episode. But yeah,
I really like your suggestion of her being like kind of like a good conscience, because I would say that in a way she's almost like the anti-Hannibal.
Yeah,
because they're both psychiatrists. The reason that Alana will not be Will's psychiatrist is because it wouldn't be ethical. Hannibal is being Will's psychiatrist, and Hannibal is the least ethical person available.
Yeah.
So I think they balance each other out very well. I also think they're quite flirty in this episode as well.
Yes, I wrote that, and I'm like looking for my notes. My brain just got stuck. But yeah.
Why is it unethical? Is it because they had a work relationship before?
Yeah, because they knew each other, they'd worked together, and also Alana is very interested in Will's empathy disorder. So to her, it wouldn't be ethical for her to overlook him because she would be conflicted because she wants to study him.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I thought so. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, I also very like Alana. And Alana is like, it's almost become like their old friends in this episode.
Yeah,
really
I feel like she let loose a little bit this episode.
Yes.
She kind of let her hair down a little bit, and like one of my favourite bits of this episode where she was like, "You got beer." I was like, "Oh,
yeah." We find out Alana loves beer.
Okay, man.
Yeah. Well, similarly, one of my favourite bits of the episode was with Alana and Hannibal, and where Hannibal compliments on says something like it gets the blood pumping, and just the smile. I was like, that was really cute. That was really adorable. I was like, oh my god. Where's
my note?
Oh yeah.
Yes. So okay, I'm going to give you some cut dialogue because I'm going to try not to give loads of cut dialogue from the script because this episode has so much, and I think
really,
oh my god, shit tons. I think most is fine. I think the episode is really good, as is. I also think all the cut dialogue is really good, but there's so much of it, there's no way they could have fit it all in. So when Alana is talking to Hannibal with that conversation, she says, "You and Will both feel responsible, but do you really think it's wise to insert yourselves into her life?" And Hannibal in the script responds, "I'm qualified to help her." Alana says, "You're the sanest man I know." Hannibal says, "I would agree." Alana says, "You saved her life, but it doesn't change the fact that Abigail's been through what she's been through." Hannibal says, "Was there when she went through it." Alana says, "I can't tell you what to do, but if you insist on taking a personal interest in her welfare, then you better understand you can't walk away no matter what the outcome." And Hannibal says, "We break it, we buy it." And then it goes into the part of the script we do actually hear, where I defer to the passion of my esteemed colleague. Passion's good, gets the blood pumping. And then it says Hannibal appreciating the flush in Alana's cheek.
Oh,
they're very flirty, which I love.
I love that. That is really cute. I also loved that. I love that Alana catches him out as trying to be a surrogate. Catches him both out and Will. It's like,
yeah, they're both of them. She is being the good conscience, the ethical one. She knows they're both trying to be surrogates. Will less willingly, Hannibal very willingly, and she knows they both shouldn't do it. She always notices what they shouldn't be doing, but it doesn't necessarily help.
She's an angel on the shoulder, like that.
I like that because then I think of 100% Hannibal being the devil on Will's shoulder. So.
Yes, absolutely.
I even think she's the angel on both of their shoulders.
That is true.
Yes. Then I forget that
Jax as well.
And Jax. And then I forget that Hannibal is out devils them all.
Literally, the way that Mads Mikkelsen describes Hannibal is the devil.
Wow.
As far as Mads is concerned, Hannibal is just the devil walking on the earth.
Fucking fantastic. That is a good way to describe
it. Yes. Fire and brimstone. So this entire episode is about family. One of the quotes I really enjoy is Will saying, "There's something so foreign about family, like an ill-fitting suit. I never connected to the concept." So we now know that Will didn't know his mother, but grew up with his father, poor and always on the move. Brian Zeller implies that Will is likely an only child due to a lack of personality development, though that is mostly Zeller just being a prick. I love Zeller, but he is being a prick.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Will also seems to have strong feelings about family as a concept with his bonds with Abigail, although he's trying to kind of disconnect himself, and also how angry he gets that he can't help the lost boys. So do you think any of this has impact on Will as a person? Like the way he bonds with people, his collection of strays? What are your thoughts on Will and family?
Oh, no, absolutely. Childhood development is like such a massive part of anyone's kind of like personality. And I think the way you interact with family and or like parents or authority figures when you were young definitely develops you.
Yeah.
Develops you so keenly. So obviously family is something that will definitely have an impact on him and how he was raised. I don't know much about his mother as he doesn't, but I think he has a fondness for his dad. Not sure what else could be said about it at this point, but I definitely think his personality has been molded by his childhood as
They say something like the first 7 years of your life or something really shape who you're going to be as an adult, something like that.
just a little bit of like off-topic personal interest kind of thing for me. Like I read recently about kind of like human teeth being a record, can be like an archive of life. Because it's similar to how it's like wood grains. Human teeth like exhibit something similar to wood grains. Like they grow in a similar pattern, and you can whereas stresses like even early, but like your birth, like your birth kind of like reflects into in that growth of your human teeth as well, and like anything that stresses you out also reflects in your teeth, which is very cool. So I think like
That's cool.
Yeah, so that I was thinking about that when I was thinking about your question, because like absolutely, childhood development through your age does like affect you. It affects not just yourself physically, mentally, but like physically in the smallest of ways, as if almost like affecting your teeth.
That's really creepy and cool.
Yeah. It was from the New York University of Department of Anthropology and College of Dentistry wrote about it, and that was one of the things that I found absolutely fascinating reading recently.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I like anthropology /
Anthropology is cool.
Anthropology, it's cooler now when it's less racist and back in
Yes.
the past. And then I also really just love forensic pathology, which is why I'm absolutely a massive nerd for Hannibal, because
random fact that is so unnecessary. I did a year of anthropology at Bournemouth Uni, and apparently we had a very famous lecturer, so famous to the point that when we went to visit Stonehenge, when we went into the museum bit, there was like these screens, info screens of like around like in the museum, and there was one exhibit where it had like some screens around. I can't remember what was in the middle, but it was the screens around it, and it was literally our lecturer like there talking, saying stuff, and he was a bit of an old dude, so he was like, "Oh, I wonder who that handsome fella is," and we were like, "What the fuck is this dude doing?" And then we realised he has like published books and he's been on TV shows, and we were like, "Shit, like fair play."
That's very cool.
Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah, anthropology is so cool.
Yeah,
so I get that, Shaira.
Anthropology is great. Yeah. And then there's lots of books I can recommend about forensic pathology. But anyway, digressing.
No, that's cool though. Like, if you ever think of anything in an episode and want to send me a link, I'll add it to the show notes as well.
Yeah. But it does make sense though that like your bones are sort of like you said, like you can tell so much from any sort of remains of literally anything, but bones are probably the most telling, just because like you said, it kind of grows in time. There's so many layers to it, things like that. You can tell so much information about the atmosphere and the time just by digging up like ice really deep down, like somewhere like North Pole or some shit. Like you could dig down and get ice from so many meters down and find out information about like how it was like thousands of years ago, like the atmosphere, what the temperature was like what the fucking CO2 levels were, like all of this shit. So like something like your bones will literally tell you anything and everything about a person. You could probably get the information of what they probably looked like of their appearance, like their skin color, hair color, all of that stuff, just from your bones. So it's very interesting that you can get all that information just from someone's little gnashes.
Old things are cool.
Yeah.
Old things are cool, and science is really cool, and
Science is very cool.
Science is really cool.
On a much less interesting note, but a script detail I wanted to include. As we're talking about family, we mentioned the scene with the FBI team where Will and Zella have their little back and forth about only child and middle children. That scene is described in the script as Jack faces Zella, Price, Katz, and Graham. He's like a demanding father presiding over his children as they present what they've just learned at school. Will stands slightly apart, not quite fitting into this surrogate family.
Oh my god, I feel like there should be like a book published just of these like stage directions because they are fucking amazing.
They are very good.
Poor Will. Poor Will. Always.
It's true though.
Oh.
Nearly every time in the FBI room or any other room with the FBI team, he tends to stand apart from everyone, or if he's closer to them, he's positioned differently. So later we see them with other bodies from the Christmas scene, I believe, and he's sitting up on a counter whilst everyone else is standing. He's always a little bit different. And it's kind of a shame because he's getting closer to them, but there's always a little bit of a separation.
Yeah.
But of course, he's getting close to Bev.
I really love that scene because I think I talked about it because there was just that fight between, well, not that fight, that forgot his name, Zella being an asshole. But then I also noticed all of that, the little looks between the three children. Bev being like the oldest child, giving like a stern look to the middle child, which is Zella, after he was being a bitch to Will, and then it was really funny look between after Will snapped back between him and Zella and Price, where like Zella's like, oh, he's being mean to me, and Price is like, you started it.
They are literally like Jack's children. They're such a great little team.
Really.
I love them. Because Zella, Price, and Katz are basically the comedy relief, especially Zella and Price, which I love. Another little script detail talking about family is when Hannibal mentions his family, because Will asks about his mother. It says, Will considers that, understanding Hannibal a little more clearly than before, or so he thinks. There's a little bit of this is just really nerdy and silly, and it doesn't need to be in the show, but I wish it was. In that conversation, so Will says, tell me about your mother, let's start there. In the script afterwards he says quid pro quo, and then it says a fan of the language, Hannibal enjoys Will's use of Latin. And then afterwards, when Hannibal says, I think we'll discover you and I have a great deal in common with Abigail, she's already demonstrated an aptitude for the psychological, in the script he says, quid pro quo. And then it says, Will is unwilling to return the volley.
Oh,
It's the biggest amount of flirting I've ever had in my fucking
Cute,
life.
though, just this idea of Hannibal being like, oh, I like that, I'm going to say it back.
Yeah,
It's
but
really
And
cute.
Will was obviously like, no, I'm not engaging in this.
Will's probably just oblivious to it because
I think he is oblivious, yeah. But it's also, I think it add a nice element to their friendship. But I think some of the more overt details of their blossoming friendship is kind of cut. I think for a multitude of reasons. I know some people think it's an NBC thing. I think it's probably more just a time thing.
Yeah, it could also be like a thing just to like not give away too much for now and kind of like
Potentially, yeah.
shit later. Yeah.
There's also just, this has nothing to do with family, it's just one of my favourite pieces of cut dialogue. In the script, Hannibal says, harbouring a half-buried grudge against the rich, and Will says, aren't we all?
We should be. We all should
Eat the rich!
Eat the rich!
Yeah, fuck him.
Well, my next talking point kind of connects to what I was just talking about, which is we also get a little glimpse into Hannibal's upbringing. This is another one of those typical things where I'll go, you might not have anything to say about this, but because it's interesting, I'm like, I have to point it out. So Hannibal says, both my parents died when I was very young, the proverbial orphan, until I was adopted by my uncle Robertus when I was 16. There's a big age gap between very young and 16. So, unlike Will, do you have any thoughts on what Hannibal's upbringing might say about him, or the very little we've been given?
Mysterious.
Yeah, or is it just kind of like, oh, yeah, that's sad?
No, because, well, whenever there's sort of a lack of information or a bit of a gap, because, you know, as we've been saying, like how someone's childhood was and their upbringing very much like helps you understand how someone is as an adult. Like, even if it's just one or two details, it still helps you like sort of piece together bits of a puzzle or tell a story. So it's like we're missing a few chapters. We don't know. It's almost like because someone is like this and we're like, how the fuck does someone get to a point where they like to eat people? We're obviously going to be like, well, hang on a minute, what fucking happened in your child? Was it something in your childhood? Like, and the fact that his parents died young, you're like, okay, so there's some like there's room for like some sort of like trauma there. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, no, then when you're 16, hang on a minute. Like I'm sort of like, well, I want to know, like, why are we not finding out right now? I was a bit like, yeah, no, for me, I was just a bit like, well, I want to know. Because like I said, like, your childhood tells a lot about a person. So I want to know what this man-eating man, what happened to him? What happened then? Like, where did he grow up? What happened? Did he watch someone eat a man? Did someone feed him a man? And he was like, oh yeah, this is the best bit of pork I've ever had. Oh, it's not pork.
Did he have to survive by eating people? Yeah. I mean, we could read the books to understand this.
Spoilers.
I don't want to read the books because spoilers. But yeah, no, I've never actually read the books myself, even though I really want to, and I definitely won't be able to until we finish this. But what I was going to say, I didn't understand the question at first. I was like, do you mean that like he says that he was very young when he lost his parents, but he was 16, actually 16 when he lost his parents. But then I really understood that he meant he lost his parents at a very young age, and then at 6, and only until 16 of age 16 where he actually got adopted by his uncle, which then made me think, oh, okay, did he have to survive a lot of his childhood, where he then was a lot of like those survival situations, as cruel as it is, give children and adults like really powerful skills. A really shitty way of learning it, but a lot of people
like how to cut out lungs.
How to cut out lungs, yeah. And they give you that kind of those like really skills, those really strong skills, and kind of you have to learn as a survival skill these skills. So maybe that's something that that's been told in this kind of short script element here.
Maybe had to grow up really quick, like from having such a shit childhood. Yeah, having to understand that he doesn't have parents, and something from that. Maybe he was in an orphanage, and there was a older kid that was like, "Oh, can I? Let's play doctors. I'm gonna break your arm off, and I'm gonna eat it. I don't know."
Okay.
Where is that thought going? The show has given us one extra detail, which is the first episode. Jack sees his illustration, which is the boarding school he went to in Paris. So maybe he was at boarding school before he was adopted. So that might have happened in the middle. There are changes between the book and the show because the book is set in a different time because it's older, and some of the things wouldn't fit in with the show. So some things do get kind of changed. I will tell you, we will find out a little bit more about younger Hannibal in, I think this series, possibly series 2. Can't quite remember if it's 1 or 2, where we find out a little bit more about his family. The next talking point I put was just, Bev continues to be awesome. I don't have much else to say there, really, just how great is Beverly Cats. Who likes Beverly Cats?
Me.
Bev is fucking awesome. There's so much I could say about her, and there's so many like cool scenes of her, and I just absolutely, I every time she comes up, I message Felix immediately. That's awesome.
I am a huge Beverly Cats fanboy, and we do get a lot of good Bev moments in this episode.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
I love her. Because they're all kind of like Jack's kids, I can't help with the family thing of kind of thinking of Bev as kind of like a little bit of a sister kind of character to Will.
Yeah,
because she's very sisterly towards him.
Yeah. I was going to say, you really get that vibe from like the first episode, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because she doesn't have any apprehension with him. She doesn't give a fuck. She just butts her head in there. And I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. Yeah,
she's got a sassy walk.
Yeah, she does. She does.
She's very sassy.
Also, I like that she's like the eldest child. So it's like she plays the eldest child role. So she probably is like, I'm protecting everyone.
I think that is probably it. I think she has a natural inclination to want to kind of care for people no matter what's going on. I think that's what she's like with Will.
Including the weird isolated child in the corner. That's Will.
Yes. Yeah. She includes the weird one over there.
Yes.
So the next thing I put is just, this is something that like people like to talk about a lot with Hannibal's relationship with Will. So Have you noticed how Hannibal acts very controlling? We remember for the first episode, he hated how Franklin, his patient, put his like scummy tissue down on the table, and that's quite a specific example. It's kind of very OCD or autism-ish, with Hannibal. But he specifically, like, we know what Hannibal is like with people. He comes across very cold and controlling unless it's someone he has an established relationship with, like Alana and now also Abigail. But that's not what he's like with his patients. But he lets Will do whatever the fuck he wants in that office. Will has been under the ladder. He's been up the ladder by the books. In this episode, he throws his bag down on the chaise longue. He goes over to the desk and he picks up his letter opener. I wrote it down as an ornament. It's not an ornament. It's a letter opener. And Hannibal just sits down and just lets him do it.
On the chaise longue, because he loves him. Because he's like, that's my man, and I'm gonna let him do whatever he wants. And same, can I join?
Oh, that's so cute. I actually didn't pick up on that. Like, I'm not sure why I didn't pick up on that. I was like, oh damn, yeah, he does. He does really like let Will do what he likes.
Right. I think it comes across very natural. So they have such a good rapport, you don't really notice it. As each episode goes by, Will seems to get even more confident in that office. I'm pretty sure in one of the later episodes, he like sits at Hannibal's desk. And it's like, that's Hannibal's fucking desk.
Yeah, he also feels like he probably has some love. Yeah, I kind of like the note that I gave myself was like, you kind of let people you love get away with so much more than you would.
They're clearly very comfortable with each other.
Yeah,
the fact that Will just feels comfortable enough to kind of treat it as his own space. And Hannibal's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna let him do it. And then otherwise, like, Hannibal's very much someone that likes to control a situation and very much is someone that knows what's going to happen when it happens. Like, you can just tell that his reaction there's barely any reaction actually to anything from him, in the sense of like anything other than this fucking one, not deadpan, but this kind of just this one face. Do you know what I mean?
His emotions are very subtle.
Yeah, that he doesn't really like show any kind of panic or a bit of like, oh fuck, like what am I going to do in this situation? He's just so like, oh yeah, I'm just going to smash this girl's head in the fucking wall. Like, he's just like casual, like he likes to command a room and like have the control over anything and just know what's going to happen. And that would make sense why he has so much like OCD of like, what the fuck is this person doing, putting like a snotty tissue on my desk. But Will put his bag down from absolutely anywhere where he's been out, you know, in the public, God knows what kind of people, and he's just like, fling the bag there. Yeah, you do that, babe. How was your day? Do you need a coffee? Do you want a massage?
That'd be a good scene. So I have multiple takes on this.
Yeah.
So I do think that Will feels comfortable in his office, which is kind of why he uses it like his own space. I would also argue, though, that's not necessarily just because it's Hannibal's office. I think that Will's lack of being able to read social situations means that Will is kind of like that everywhere. He's very awkward and isolated, but we also see him sit up on a counter in one of the FBI labs.
Oh, yeah.
He also... Brain reminded me of the thing I was going to say.
He does that thing that you shared on the chat.
He sleeps in that room.
He leans back. Yeah.
He goes to sleep.
Wait. Yes! That was the other thing. Yeah, in the middle of a conversation, he just sits at the back of the room leaning against furniture with his eyes closed like he doesn't care. So I think you could read it as comfort or just Will being Will. It could be either.
He's also a bad boy. He don't give a fuck about anything or anyone. He's going to make wherever he is comfortable for him. Okay?
I read it as comfort, but I also read it as something like where it's something to do with if you're comfortable and you're like not too like overanalyzing, you do pick up, or you do like your natural instincts kick in and you kind of do your best work sometimes if you're not like too anxious. So I kind of read that particular scene where he's on that cabinet leaning back, kind of like he's just letting himself relax and letting all that information come to him.
He's just that bitch.
Just that bitch.
He's just that bitch. Yeah.
I also think there are kind of two angles to Hannibal's behavior in allowing Will to take over that space. On the one hand, you could just think it's a relaxation of their budding friendship. He doesn't
Yeah.
think of Will like he thinks of other people. He is interested in Will. He's kind of obsessed with Will. So why wouldn't he let him wander around this place? He did snoop around his house. So, you know, it's fair. But on the other
Friendship.
hand, yeah, friendship in inverted commas.
Friendship.
Real close friendship.
Mm.
But on the other hand, is it a manipulation tactic? You let someone let their guard down, have ownership of the space, they're more relaxed, it's in a psychological setting, you want Will to be able to break down those barriers. Remember, forts. He summons forts. Associations come easily. No space in the bone arena of his mind.
Yeah.
So is it not a friendship thing, but a manipulation tactic in order to ease more out of Will?
Most likely would be with someone like Hannibal.
Or maybe it's a friendship that I kind of want to see you naked, though, kind of friendship.
This episode is the first episode where Hannibal looks directly at Will's ass. When Will goes over to that desk and has the letter opener, Hannibal looks at his ass and then looks up.
Blasphemy.
It's very funny.
I literally wrote down in my notes. Also, maybe he's just too busy fantasizing about getting that ass to be his.
There are so many scenes where Hannibal's eyes are at Will's ass.
You want to hit it from that back.
Hugh Dancy's butt is chef's kiss. So
I mean, I agree.
It's understandable. If I were Hannibal, I'd have the same issue. I wrote his hair is worn a bit looser in this scene, but to be fair, that's kind of general of Hannibal in his office. His hair is often looser, and then during the day when he's out and about, he has it slicked further back. Just on a personal ranty note, a lot of people like to write that Hannibal has his hair gelled back. It's clearly not gel, it's very obviously hair wax. There's a difference. Hannibal wouldn't use gel, he uses wax.
Hannibal would not use gel. I agree.
Gel is for peasants.
Exactly, he used beautiful wax that keeps his hair looking matte. Gel would make it look shiny. Anyway.
I love that.
My personal pet peeves. It's like the Bentley being black when it's actually midnight blue.
Yeah.
I'm such a fuzzy bitch.
You gotta let him know, man.
And that's all you.
I'm very passionate. So, the big one. What are your thoughts on Hannibal giving Abigail psilocybin, aka mushroom tea, aka magic mushrooms? Fuck's that all about?
Fucking hilarious.
Get a high. I would find that hilarious if it was like a peer-to-peer, but to me that was like, damn, that's toxic. Like, you're an adult, you're giving children drugs. Stop doing that.
I mean, I don't think it's that far-fetched in the fact that he is, like a psychiatrist, therapist, counselor, all of that. It's not anything. I mean, I guess in this day and age, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I assume like it was probably, at least in America anyway, a thing that is, used, especially shrooms. It does make sense, like something like that to sort of tap into your psyche to kind of get you to change your perspective on things. Like it does actually make sense, and I think as a concept it would definitely work. But what I can't figure out is Hannibal's reasons for it, like if he was actually genuinely trying to do that in the sense of looking out for her and trying to therapize her in that way, in the sense of like, yeah, this is something that's going to work and I want to do this to help you, or if quite probably there was like another sort of agenda with him.
I felt like he was trying to make Abigail more malleable. in that regard, actually, because we know Hannibal is very manipulative in this, and is trying to like, Hannibal's family is growing, unwilling as they are, a cannibal family of the psychologically gifted. That's how I describe it.
Oh, I like that.
Hannibal is
it's accurate,
Hannibal is collecting a family and creating his own cannibal family of the psychologically gifted.
Oh yeah, it makes sense. As he has said, Abigail has like a penchant for the psychological, and Will has his empathy disorder.
And he's very powerfully has very powerful psychological powers.
So I have some things to say about this scene. Of course I do. I'm Felix. I have things to say about Hannibal. So Melissa is correct in that psilocybin is used for mental health treatment. So things like anxiety, depression, addiction, OCD, and psychosis. So you could easily argue that whilst, yes, it is probably unethical, there could be a genuine psychiatrist element to it. As you say, like around 10, 11 years ago, I don't know if that was so much the case, but Hannibal is also very educated, so he may be aware of the beneficial properties of it, even if it wasn't a common action to do.
I feel like at the time, if it was, I feel like it would be in very, very expensive, like it is now, very expensive, like doctors that kind of have the permission to do so. Like now it's definitely more available, like stuff like, what's that tea that people have? And it's got that long name. And it's like you go and pay a lot of money to go into these controlled environments where they have the licenses and the permissions to do it. Because if you don't, then it's obviously illegal, and that, like, you know, changes your life and helps you go through all those things. So I feel like, if anything, it would have been like so expensive to do it in these very scarce places, maybe. I feel like at that time, I would believe that America would have it at that point in time, you know, like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, like we have stuff like that in the UK now. Just on a tangent, because you mentioned it, we have a lot of treatments like that in the UK, actually, private treatments, because one of the common ones for people with treatment-resistant depression is electroconvulsive therapy, which a lot of the time we think of as very outdated and scary, but actually, no, you can pay a lot of money to get it done privately, and for some people it saves their lives.
Wow.
So a lot of more controversial treatments are actually now administered under a controlled environment where the science behind it is much better understood than it was before. And there's lots of treatments like that now that you just wouldn't know about because they're not available on, for example, in the UK on the NHS. So I wanted to read a little description of one of the described experiences of psilocybin, just as something that may not make sense to you now. In fact, it won't make sense to you now, but to plant in your minds that may make sense as the series goes on as a theme. So psilocybin is said to strongly influence the passage of time. Users often feel as if time is slowed down, resulting in the perception that minutes appear to be hours or that time is standing still. Just a thing. To add to that, I wanted to talk about the teacup that Abigail drinks from. It is, it comes from the brand Mikasa, and it is from their Crown Jewel Platinum series. There's a whole set. You can get like teapots and bowls and plates, dinner plates, side plates, everything for this. There's another variation of that design that has a second silver band going around the design that is far more accessible these days. It's a bit more ornate on the top as well, but that is not the version used in the show. The version in the show just has the single silver band going around the top or around the edge on like the saucer. And just to remind you, that teacup gets smashed.
It does.
What is Will described as in the first episode?
Oh, I've forgotten.
A fragile little teacup.
Oh,
so I'm just going to let you remember that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I also saw that part similar to the question you had, where he allows Will to be more comfortable in his space, where with Hannibal allowing Abigail to be more comfortable in his space. Because I don't think Hannibal would be appreciative if one of his his patients, who he didn't like very much, broke a teacup. I think they'd be there for dinner.
Yeah, he's totally unfazed by Abigail slashing that teacup. I think my interpretation of it is because he foresees it. He is prepared for something bad to happen. He's just given her a drug. So therefore he knows in that situation he has to be calm and relaxed. And if she breaks something, it's fine. Because that's how you have to present yourself to someone who is undergoing a trip. As you need to guide them, not be abrasive. He allows her to hang out in his kitchen. I think Hannibal's kitchen is his special space. It's where he prepares everything. So I really like that he's making the food with her. He's not just serving it to her. He's communicating with her and they're hanging out in like what is one of his most precious spaces. We also get to see a little bit more of his dining room in this episode.
Hannibal.
His beautiful herb garden wall, where he has the live plants on the side. I love Hannibal's house, and I know the layout of his kitchen off the top of my head. Like, I have it memorized because I have problems.
No,
that's not
beautiful.
There's a leather chair in that room.
It's fucking skill, babe.
I saw the herb her ball, and I was like, I want this. I
Isn't it
love
cool?
this. This is so pretty.
You get like
Yeah.
different shots of it every time there's kind of a dinner party, and because that one's to one side. So also though, to do with that dining room is my favourite piece of script information that is not in the show
Ooh.
that I wish was in the show. I'm just gonna find it. I think you'll like it too. In the dinner scene, Alana comes over and has a little bit of an argument with Hannibal, who is all meek and submissive.
I love that scene with Alana.
So cute how much he puts on the persona of being a human to Alana. But they walk into the dining room, and Alana sees that there's a third place setting at the table. And she says, "You were expecting me?"
Yeah.
In the script, Hannibal says, "In the interest of honesty, we were expecting Will Graham, but my phone calls went unreturned."
Oh,
It's
just
cute.
wanted his husband home for dinner with
Yeah,
their daughter.
remember that. What does Abigail see at the table?
I see family.
Family.
Yeah. He had intended for her to see him and Will as her parents. And yeah, that's one of my favourite things, and I'm like many people bitter that it was not included in the show.
Yeah, that would have been cute.
Mm-hmm. So
Excuse me.
good.
And I think that would have fit as well.
Right? There's a lot of there's a lot more overt Will Hannibal stuff that is not in the first season, which is a shame. Part of it may have been the love story element of Hannibal was not as sold and overt in the first season. And I think part of that may be a little bit of mild censorship from NBC. Because it wasn't, the first season wasn't sold as a love story. The first season was sold as a horror procedural drama.
Yeah. I'm glad it gets gay in season 2. A lot of people a lot of people who I've spoken about it, who I love it, is like, it gets really gay in season 2. It's like, that's the reason why they love it.
Season 2 and season 3, we get all the beautiful gay. I say we get all the beautiful gay. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Will Graham is straight.
No, he's not.
He is, but it changes nothing, and that's the beauty of sexuality.
Cute.
Last little talking point is just at the end, we get introduced to, she's not even named, but Bella, who is Jack's wife. Their relationship seems very strained. What were your thoughts of the little end scene with Jack and Bella?
Oh, it was I feel like it was that very stereotypical kind of, I assume quite common moment of like a father in a relationship being like, well, not a father, like a man in a relationship being like, oh, do you think it's too late for us to have kids? And then the woman, like the way that she turned over, you could just feel her like frustration and her like, oh my god, like I can't believe you've just said this. And like clearly, like you could just tell just from so little told so much. I feel like you could tell that she'd probably spoken about it so many times and like explained to him so many times, just the way she was like, oh, for me it is. I was like, oh my god, like it's so painful because I guess like unless you have a womb, like people with a womb and like want to bear children, like they probably just, like telling you like the person that they're with, like, oh, I haven't got long left, like if we want to have kids, this is the time to do it. And like, oh, I just felt so much. I was just like, no, that's like so painful to watch. And he just kind of like was taken aback of like, oh, like I don't even know if he like fully got it. Do you know what I mean?
It fully grasped the situation. Yeah, I didn't want to go in that position, which is because it did pop into my head. It was like, it's too painful to talk about. I didn't want to talk about it or think about it. So I went in the completely completely different direction, which probably the wrong direction. That Jack is too much of an asshole. It's too much into work. He ignores his wife too much, and I just wanted that to be more true.
Yeah.
The other thing, I wanted that to be more true than the other thing, because the other thing is Sucky and him being a man going,
Yeah.
damn you bitch. That's such a shitty thing to ask.
Yeah.
Like I get it. It's an ask, but like you can tell. Like you said, you can tell she's had the conversation previously.
Yeah, and it's something so important. Like you're literally telling someone about your bodily health and the state of your body, and that, you know, for a lot of people, your reproductive systems, your ovaries and stuff is in a way on like a little bit of a ticking time bomb, in the sense of like, you know, there's times where it's going to be like at its absolute optimal, and then it's going to start decreasing, and then the likeliness and stuff like that, and then there's other elements like conditions that can really like accelerate that chance of the decreasing chance of you being able to bear children, like really go like come a lot sooner and stuff like that. So it's something that I like, just from her reaction, you feel like it's probably something that she mentioned so much for so many times, like for so long, and then like he just pops up with this one question, and it's just like so little words just hurt so much, and I was just like, I just felt for her.
I think they're all good opinions, because the simple fact is we have so little to go on.
Yeah.
It's a very strong, very short scene that gives us so little information and so much at the same time, which I really like. One thing I will say is there's a little more script omissions.
Oh.
There's a little bit, I'll give a little bit of cut dialogue from the script. When Jack is speaking to the boy Christopher in the car at the end, one of the things that gets cut is he says to him, "I wish to God you hadn't gone with that woman, but you did. All of that can't just suddenly be undone. But in time, if you trust me, we can start undoing what we can." And it's nice, isn't it?
I wish that was stayed in, because I think of Jack as such an asshole, and that's one of the things that I thought was like, oh, Jack, you got to be just a little bit nicer. He's probably a child who's been indoctrinated, or not indoctrinated, who's been manipulated by this. Yeah, who's been indoctrinated by this person. You could just be a bit nicer. I wish that wasn't omitted.
See, I think he's really nice in that scene, which I find really funny. Like, I think he's still being a bit of a hard ass, but I think he's being quite nice.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been a clearer implication, but I think there is a little implication where, like, the reason he's asking is because he's genuinely kind of had a sudden little moment of, shit, I don't have a family, do I?
Too little, too late, buddy. Fucking
clearly,
though. Like,
he's very much being a man.
Yeah, it's definitely like no doubt of his intentions with asking. Like, he was definitely being sincere, but it's like, fucking hell, like it just from that very like little brief moment from the surface, it really makes him seem like he does not fucking listen to his wife, or just has no sense of awareness. But then, like, I don't know, I don't believe that she wouldn't have not been telling him.
She has a very cold response.
Yeah, because like if you're married and like that's something within someone's interest to have children, and like the way in which she reacted is what says to me that she said it so many times that, like, you know, we're passing the point kind of thing. And it's like her reaction is kind of like, you clearly weren't listening, or like clearly didn't realize that I meant that, you know, it's too late. Oh,
too busy working.
Yeah,
he does love his job.
The man does love his job, it seems too much. So
I'm going to give you like a collection of little tidbits of extra things.
Yeah.
One of them, for what listeners will not know, is I put a very weird image into our Discord chat earlier today, which is of a juicer.
Yeah,
if you say so.
It's got a fucking lemon.
Juicer of what, Felix? Juicer
in
of
the script.
What?
You can juice anything if you try hard enough. So in the script, for some unknown reason, it specifies the juicer that Hannibal is using to make orange juice. Oh. And it is a Philip Stark juicer. I say Philip Stark, I think Philip Stark is the designer. The actual brand is Alessi, which I already knew because I love Alessi. They make incredibly expensive things. That's like an £80 juicer. And I will put the image in the notes, but for everyone else, if you look up Alessi juicer, it's got 3 long legs and then a big juicer shape in the middle. And I used to look at this juicer in John Lewis all the time, like 10 years ago, because I desperately wanted one, because to me, it looks like an alien spaceship from War of the Worlds.
It literally reminds me, of Alien the movie for some reason.
For £80, it best be an alien spaceship.
Do you know what I mean? Like, is it doing it on its own? Why is it manual if it's
Yeah,
fucking
no.
£80?
Yeah, literally. It's designed in such a way so if you juice on top, it runs down in the middle, so you put the glass in the middle, which is quite cool. But the three-pronged
Yeah.
legs, for the world.
Sexual thing I've seen in my fucking life, bro. Like, I need that for science. No other
You need
reason.
to open your mind if that's the most sexual thing you've ever seen.
This image here where it's like they've got it on the actual website and it is like dripping down. And maybe I'm just a queer with a dirty mind. Sue me. I like women.
It's so bad. I want one so bad. If anyone wants to buy me a birthday present.
Oof.
So I just want to give you some fun little script details because I've been going through and reminding myself. Actually, before script details, I just want to tell you something interesting about this episode, which is I think that this episode is the first real example we get of content being cut for being too graphic. This is. I don't know all of this for sure, but I certainly can tell it from the script. One thing I know not from the script, well, a combination. In the script, you know the Christmas scene with the burning child in the fireplace and everyone else dead?
Crispy child.
That's a very crispy child, yeah. In the script, actually, a dog runs through the house with an arm in its mouth.
Oh.
We know that this was recorded and cut because there is a blooper of it.
Oh,
of
wow.
Will or Hugh Dancy trying to grab the dog and failing to get the arm from it.
I kind of want to watch it now.
Yeah. There's also little bits of dialogue that I believe were probably cut because NBC were like, Like, NBC let them do a lot. They let a lot of stuff pass. But I think this is the first episode where a lot of things were kind of like, maybe not. So when Abigail says to Alana, I'm a celebrity victim, someone here asked me if I kept my stained clothes. She then says, like I was that girl who did oral with President Clinton. Which I also believe from the way it's cut together, they probably recorded and cut that out.
That's funny. That would have made me
it is funny,
burst out laughing.
There are a lot of the more sexual lines got cut.
No, that's valid.
There's in I think it's season 2. No, it might be season 3 actually. There's some kind of lesbian joke, but Brian Fuller had to rewrite it several times to come up with one that was so obscure that he could get it past censorship. Because he really wanted that lesbian joke, but he had to get the right one. There's also, towards the end, when the family confrontation scene is happening, and someone fires a gun, or fires a gun and misses, in the script, the bullet grazes the dad's ear, and it's very clear he gets hit, but it's off. Then the older boy falls into the barbecue.
I saw the book.
Yeah, we see it, but like in the script, it's overt that CJ face plants into the barbecue grill and the father's ear gets shot, but like it's graphically described as like him going face first into the grill. Ooh. I think they cut that down a little bit, so it's not very obvious. You just see him sort of hit the grill and then fall down.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like,
yeah, same. I was like, is he not getting like roasted right now? Like literally.
Yes,
I thought he was going to have a bit of a scream, but yeah, I'm guessing he did.
There's, as I mentioned, there's a lot of cut dialogue in the script. Will and Ava, who is the not mother, have a full conversation while she's holding Christopher, the child. So in the script, Ava says to Christopher, "Shoot him for me." Then says to Will, "Drop your gun for my boy." Will says, "You're his new mother." Ava says, "I am, and I love him, but I will do what I have to do for my family." Will says, "You abducted these boys. Your son CJ killed your other son Connor. You burned his remains to honour him as your mother." And it says she studies Will. How dare he question her motherhood? And she says, "I'm honouring them like their mothers wouldn't. They're not invisible anymore. I can see them. I see who they are and love them." And Will says, "Be Christopher's mother now. Protect him. Don't murder him." And Eva says, "The most loving mothers commit murder with smiles on their faces. They force us to destroy the person we are, a subtle kind of murder." And then it says, "Will lets the gun fall to the ground." Yeah. When she says, "Shoot him, Christopher," in the script, she then adds, "like I showed you." Which is, that whole bit is really good.
I would have said that's an instant favourite quote if that was
there's a lot of really good dialogue. I think there's just too much there to cut a lot.
Yeah.
In the scene where Alana, Beverly, and Will are all talking about the kids, the bit at the end when Alana says, "Brother's looking for a mother," that's not in the script. So I quite like that they added that. So actually Alana gets it before everyone else. However, in the script, they're discussing it, and Bev refers to the whole thing as a fuse yet to be lit. And Alana says a buried darkness, an ink spot on their soul. It takes a catalyst to bring that to the surface. And it says the conversation makes Will uncomfortable. He paces the table, studying in turn the 14 pictures. Then Will says the bit that is in the show, which is our Trilby's a boy, a paradox in the midst of a normal family, an outsider who doesn't look like one. He'd be good at a vocation, something inventive or mechanical. Alana says, to Will, would have been a perfect candidate. And Will says, I would have.
Oh, wow.
And it's true.
Yeah.
He would be good at a vocation, something inventive or mechanical.
Yeah.
And his childhood putting together boat motors, yeah. So another kind of, why would Will be so connected and angry about those kids? Because he kind of relates in a weird way, because he lost his mother.
Yeah, he does.
There's this is just a weird, fun little bit of dialogue that I just enjoyed, which is Beverly talking to Jimmy and Will, Jimmy Price, and Bev says the shepherd and his flock, and Price says when a sheep ran away, the shepherd used to break its leg to keep it from running away again. It forced the sheep to rely on the shepherd. Bev says cruel to be kind, and Will, a very Will thing, says animals remember the voice of a trusted familiar person. They also remember the people who inflict abuse on them.
Oh, I love that. I love that about Will. Oh my god, yes.
It's good. There's another fun little bit of dialogue between Hannibal and Abigail, where Hannibal says to her, we don't invent our natures, Abigail. They're issued to us with our lungs and pancreas and everything else. Can't fight it. And Abigail says, I don't know what my nature is. There's another little bit of dialogue between them in the same scene. Abigail asks, what would have happened to my dad if you guys didn't kill him? And Hannibal says, we live in a primitive time, Abigail, neither savage nor wise. He'd be exactly where he is now. Be grateful for your scars. She says, grateful? And he says, our scars have the power to remind us that the past was real. Anchors us. We all need to be anchored.
Oh, yeah, I like...
He also thinks Will needs to be anchored.
He does. He did mention that way earlier.
Will needs to be what now?
Okay. You're supposed to be my paddle.
Paddling, anchoring, down.
Docking. Silly bit of cut dialogue between Will and Jack. Will says, good news, Mr. and Mrs. Frist. Your son's alive. Bad news. He's a suspect in 4 murders. Oh, sorry. Oh, God, yeah, another weird one in the little FBI room. Price says, I'll say, lived in the Turner's house for a week after they were dead. Ordered pizza and pay-per-view movies. Porn, lots of porn. And Bev says, there's a strong bond of aggression and sexual drives that occurs in sadists at an early age. And Zella goes, I didn't turn out to be a sadist.
Oh, wow.
Oh, whoa.
God. Zella loves porn.
I don't like Zella much anymore.
I'm kind of glad they removed that, because I do like Zella. It's a bit, she good?
You good, my friend.
The conversation between Hannibal and Jack at the dinner table is quite a lot longer as well when they're talking about Will and anchoring. So we know that Jack says our friend Will seemed haunted today. In the script he says more than usual, thought maybe it was the nature of the case, and then we have a murdered family. Hannibal says, I doubt the age and relationship of victims he's investigating would affect his professionalism. So Jack asks then what would, and then we get Hannibal's line in the show, we don't know what nightmares lie coiled beneath Will's pillow. In the script, Jack says, we don't, you should. And Hannibal says the first bond to a killer itches and stings like a leech. That may be the distraction. Then we get the children killing other children, not an unfamiliar notion for Will bit. And Hannibal says, you still suspect Abigail Hobbs for her father's crimes. And Jack says, doesn't matter what I suspect, it matters what I can prove. Miss Hobbs has been absolved of any crime. I think it's meant to be has been absolved. Hannibal says, yet. Then we get the nightmare under Will's pillow bit. And Hannibal suggests a more innocuous theory. And Jack says, please. And in the script, Hannibal says, we get more adding up to the anchor bit. Children transport us to our childhoods. Will may feel the tug of life before the FBI, before you. And then we get the simpler times of boatyards with Dad. The life is an anchor scheme.
Yeah. That's great.
There's so much.
Yeah, one of the things that I've thought of during that scene, though, with actually 2 things I've thought of during that scene where he was having dinner with Jack. I really like Jack has a lot of dinner with Hannibal.
Oh, he does.
I really, really wonder how Jack would feel when or if he ever finds out about Hannibal. Like, how disgusting or disgusted as a person would you feel after finding out about Hannibal? It's like, he fed me food so many times. How many times of those were they eating people?
Like so betrayed. You'd feel so betrayed, no?
You'll be so betrayed.
Like,
And another
what would you actually like? What would your reaction be to knowing that you ate human body and enjoyed it?
enjoyed it without
Ugh.
consent.
Thanks to this show, I don't think I can even answer that question anymore.
Oh, okay.
Depends. Is Hannibal involved? I'll have a different answer.
Yeah. And then going back to the really funny cannibal puns, where he says, Jack says that the bunny didn't hop fast enough. I put maybe the person had a rabbit persona, and that's why he's a rabbit. But yeah.
Everyone Hannibal actually kills is just a furry, so technically they are animals.
Yeah, technically they are animals.
So one final little script detail I wanted to mention is just the description of the very last scene of the episode, which kind of ties the entire family thing together, where it says, Will lays in his bed, watching as the last of his dogs finally settle and go to sleep, his own children happy in their beds. He smiles and closes his eyes.
Oh, I want that. I wanted that scene. That scene would have been nice. Give us a nice scene.
Oh, we got the scene, but he doesn't really smile, he just kind of closes his eyes. There is one extra little scene in between a couple of scenes around the middle of the episode that shows Will going outside and his dogs run around in the yard outside his porch.
Yeah, I saw that. I love that scene.
Yeah, it's not in the script, but that features one of my favourite pieces of music from the soundtrack as well.
It was adorable, and I was
piece.
like, it really gives some like nice like subtle personality to Will.
Yeah, I think they added it as another, as well as the ending scene as another little. Here's Will with Will's family.
Aww.
So we're gonna do our favourite quotes, favourite moment next episode predictions. Who's going first?
So, I there wasn't many quotable things in this that I really enjoyed. There was like amazing quotes that I can go through, like whole lines of things. Like the one that you mentioned with the whole family, I never felt fit well with family, which was a great quote. But I chose one that just that speaks to me as someone who loves food. Hi, love. I'm gonna read the whole quote, but it's literally the last bit that's my favorite. Like, high life eggs. A chef in Spain called Muro claimed he invented it in the 19th century. And then my favorite part of the actual quote that I love is, "Taste is not only biochemical; it's also psychological." And as someone who loves to cook, yes, absolutely. Yum yum yum. It gives you happiness, and sometimes it also can mend a broken heart. Sometimes it can also make you feel sad, remembering of the good times. Anyway, it's very powerful. Food is. My favorite scene. God, I love my favorite scene. So my favorite scene is between two scenes, and it's just so good. It's the part where Will goes into kind of like a monologue when they're talking about the kids in one of the scenes. It's like, no, capture bonding, a passive psychological response to a new master, has been an essential survival tool for 1,000,000 years. Bond with your captor, you survive. You don't, you're breakfast. And then it just switches gently to Abigail and Hannibal, and I was like, damn, I love that. That is such a good scene switch, because that just absolutely portrays exactly what's happening during Abigail and Hannibal scene.
Yeah.
And like, perfect. I love that, like that moment. Like, that was my favorite moment. And then the next predictions for the next episode, I don't actually have any like predictions, but hopefully starting to see the cannibal family come together. But I'm gonna have just a silly one where hopefully Will and, well, just a more of a hopeful one where we get to see the three family members and their estranged their estranged I don't know, what can I call Lana? Their strange sister? Their strange
Aunt
auntie?
Alana.
Yeah.
Aunt Alana, and Abigail and Will and Hannibal, all together as a cute family. Next prediction. That's my prediction. I don't actually know what I can predict for the next one. I think I noted it in most of the other episodes that I think is going to come up.
Oh my god. Okay, so as always, I can never make a decision for my life. So I have a few favourite bits for each bit. The first one I wrote down For some reason, well, it maybe not necessarily a favorite quote, but it kind of stuck out to me, where Abigail says, "Support groups are sucking the life out of me," and then Alana says, "Isolation can suck just as much," and I was like, "Oh, Fairs, that's a little bit of a thinker, you know? Like sometimes when you're sort of battling with something or struggling with something, some people might want to just shut themselves off from everything. And when she said isolation can suck just as much, I just was like, do you know what? Yeah, I agree with that, because a lot of times with things that I have dealt with and struggled with in the past, I shut myself off. And I think that was not the right decision. And I think I would have been better off being with people. I think sometimes making yourself uncomfortable is the right thing to do to progress in certain situations with certain things. And I was like, yeah, I kind of like that. I think probably my top quotes of this episode, just because it made me chuckle, was, do you have an appointment? Do you have a beer? Yeah, babe, I have a beer for you any time of the day. What do you mean? Get in my fucking office now. And unbutton those buttons. Oh, and of course, you promised to deliver your wife to my dinner table. And then underneath it, I wrote, "Sir, lol." And I loved that when we watched it together, we were just like, it's a joke. Favorite moment, of course. What else is it going to be? If you don't eat your growing foods, you don't get dessert, whatever it is. And then she's just there like, okay. And we literally, all of us together were like, yes, Daddy.
Yes, Daddy.
Oh, tell me again, one more time. Get a little bit sweaty. Yeah. And then predictions. Oh, well, serious prediction for once in my life. I feel like maybe where we had that such ambiguous introduction to Jack's wife, I feel like maybe we might find out a little bit more about what's going on there. It would be nice to know, just because, again, where it was just so ambiguous and we were sort of running on, you know, what it could have been and all of that. It'll be nice to follow that story and see maybe what's going on there. Other predictions would be maybe more Will in his revealing boxes and gay sex, baby!
For a moment, I thought you weren't going to say it, and there'd be something
the back,
like
because he was looking at that back, and he was like, "I want to hit that so bad, but I need to stay professional." He wants it. He wants the ass, and I say, "Get it, babe. You want it. You get it.
You
See it. I like it. I want it. I got it." So.
Can I add something to my prediction?
Of course you can.
We're gonna see the Swiggly Swag. It's the Nightmare Stag again.
Yeah, this is the first episode without the Nightmare Stag.
Yeah, how dare you?
Where's our sweet feathery baby? Our good nightmare boy.
Oh, exactly.
Girl / they them.
They them. Yeah.
They them stag.
Yes, absolutely.
Pronouns nightmare / stag.
Nightmare / stag. Yeah.
So my favorite quote, I have 4 written down because of course I do. So the one I actually chose is something that Shaira mentioned for favorite moments. I'm going to mention it first, which is the capture bonding quote.
Oh, sick.
So I chose it for a different reason.
Oh.
I agree. The transition from the "don't your breakfast" onto Abigail and Hannibal is just chef's kiss beautiful. The reason I chose it is because of the person saying it. I would just suggest capture bonding, a passive psychological response to a new master. It's been an essential tool for a million of years. Bond with your captor, you survive, don't your breakfast.
Yeah.
Also, think about who's saying it. That's all I'm going to say about that. I had a couple of different quotes. The Will one talking about, "I tried so hard to know Garrett Jacob Hobbs," because I really like to see him past the glint of slides and vials beneath the lines of police reports between the pixels of all those printed faces of sad dead girls, is a good quote. Also, the family portraits quote is really good. "False faces and family portraits, layers and layers of lies betrayed by a sad glint in a child's eye."
Yes, absolutely.
Again, Norman Rockwell with a bullet. But the quote then I am actually now going to choose is Alana saying, "Rude, Hannibal, shockingly rude."
Oh.
Because I
I
love that quote.
I love when Alana gets angry. I was like, yes, Alana.
Yeah. And Hannibal is all about not liking rude people, and she just straight to his fucking face, just rude. One of my favorite things. My favorite moment, if anyone knows me, already knows what my favorite moment is. It's the always smile. aka the smile that I had to make Shaira and Melisa look at because it's so quick.
Yeah.
It's such
It's
a
such a
very
cute
quick
smile, I get
blink
that.
and you'll miss it
Like,
moment.
yeah, now after you pointed it out to us, I was like, how could I fucking miss it? It is very
Right?
sweet.
It's one of the best Will smiles in the show, and we get a lot of really good Will
Oh.
smiles. Unsurprisingly, nearly all of them are when he's speaking with Hannibal. Funny that. Yeah, when Hannibal says always the new boy at school, he says always, and just, his little beautiful face.
He's so straight, except for Hannibal.
Sexuality is fluid.
Amen.
Literally, so Brian Fuller, one of the things he said about Hannibal, and he said this from season 1 when season 1 was airing, is one of the things he specifically wanted to explore in the story is the idea of friendship between men and someone who is straight and someone who isn't necessarily straight, and how men can bond and become close to one another, because at the time, especially 11 years ago, was not something really shown in serious shows. Yeah, so that's why I like to point out that Will is straight. My next episode predictions are: in an attempt to better understand his psychiatrist, Will Graham will take up Lithuanian language lessons.
Oh.
I love these. I hope so.
Hey, as I've said before, my predictions never fail.
Yeah, never fail. Will needs to impress his eight language
I'm waiting for
fluent languaged.
Yeah.
Yes. He needs to
True.
pick all these languages. There, actually, fun fact about Will, I can't remember if it's confirmed in the books or not. I want to say it is, but if not, I know a lot of people think it. So Hugh Dancy doesn't play Will really with a southern accent, but remember, he lives in Virginia, and he's from Louisiana, boatyards in Louisiana. So there is the idea that Will can probably speak a bit of French, because he's probably able to speak Creole. I love that idea.
Yeah.
There's a headcanon a lot of people really like, which is the idea if Will gets either tired or drunk enough, maybe his southern accent comes out.
Amazing.
Which, yeah, I love that idea. If you like the idea of Hugh Dancy doing a southern accent, he does a reading of the book By Nightfall by Michael Cunningham, and one of the characters in that, who is queer, has a southern accent, and Hugh Dancy does a beautiful queer boy southern voice. And it's... it does things to me. So, if you're all ready, I will give you my sign-off with a little tease for the next episode. Will has a crisis of faith, and Hannibal displays his high level of insmelligence. Fate and Circumstance is an independent podcast brought to you by Felix Fanfaron Fern, Melisa Suzan, and Shaira Bambi. You can find and follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at HannibalPod. We are fans of the show NBC's Hannibal and do not own the rights to any of the materials discussed, merely appreciators. The music used in this podcast is Tchaikovsky's Op. No. 40 Waltz by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Thanks for listening.